and welcome to Scale Car Garage. Well, still working with the Lolas, and I am really enjoying this so far. It was really great, I guess, enhancing the Lola T-70 by Monogram from the 2000s. And I think it's time to go back to the 60s. And the body that I'm really, I guess, concerned about is the Palmer, because, well, it's a wee body. And yet it's actually pretty close to scale, believe it or not. 1/32 scale, that is. So, well, let's see what we can do with this body, and see what we can do as far as the chassis is concerned to make this car a cool little slot car. All right, well, let's get to work here at Scale Car Garage. All right, so here we are at the workbench where I do soldering, and we're going to actually create a Sidewinder chassis for the Palmer Lola T-70 body. Thankfully, I actually kept the plastic chassis for the kit, so that'll give us the wheelbase, which is great, just great. If you remember, one of the proof of concepts that we had was sort of a rattler chassis. It had a pan, a Sidewinder with gears, and the sort of rattle pans on the side. Here it is here. It of course was, proof of concept. So I actually built this rather quickly. I won't say hastily, but quickly, because there was some thought put into it. The pan was soldered to the edge of the motor, and that was its weak point. It didn't last. So we know not to do that now. That's a good thing. What I think should do is take this edge of the motor, this whole side, and solder the pan to the entire edge of the motor. And then I think we'll have a pretty good Sidewinder chassis. The other aspect that will change, and this was always intended to be changed anyway, because I had these bars that were just, scrap essentially, and I thought to try it and see how this rattles. We're going to use pans instead, or flat pieces of brass. It served its purpose, and we can still reuse the motor and the gears, so it's not a total loss. It did its job. Okay, so now let's just put that over there. We have sheet brass in various widths. This was the width that we used for the proof of concept, so I think we're good with the width for the center pan. For the side pans, I was thinking of a wider pan on each side, but measuring the model chassis, and of course, which determines the width, we have to use the narrower brass sheet, which is 1/4 of an inch on each side. And I think that will work really, really well. So let's cut up some brass. Oh, of course, and for the axles, I'm so sorry, I almost forgot. Square brass tubing with an interior dimension of 3/32 for the axles. So actually, I've gone ahead and cut these up already. I didn't want to bore you with me in front of a Dremel tool. I mean, how many shots of a Dremel tool can you take? So I actually cut some up, and I put them over here. And we have, excuse me, put these up. And we have a center pan cut and the 2 side pans. With the center pans cut, just going to put our existing stock to the side, if I may. There we go. I used our jig, and set up the jig here. I will show you very quickly how this will work. And then you take a couple of these for the rear. These go on the back of the pan, and it all squares up really nicely on this jig, as you can see. Let me just assemble this quickly. Dry. And we'll put a motor, and you can see what it looks like. It actually lines up quite nicely. So let's solder one away. How about that? All right. So as you can see, we've got everything set up on the jig and now soldered. So what's really important too is to make sure with a square to see if the chassis is actually square. All right, so let's do that. It's always fun to do that, isn't it? There we are in the jig. It's all cooled. Let's see if this is actually square. And it appears, we do it this way, it appears to be square. Well, that's good news. That is good news. I don't know if you can see, but the pan against the axle is square. Okay, so now what we have to try and do is make the pans on the side, which of course we'll need our square again. So let's, I think the best way to do that would be to use this flat piece of marble. And that's how we're going to do. We're going to use a flat piece of marble. We're going to take this and put it right to the side so it doesn't get injured in any way. That's important. We're going to take our two side pans here. Two side pans. And actually, we'll need this, I beg your pardon. So we want to see the width. And we want a little wider than the width. There we go. That looks about right. And then what we're going to do is we're going to put a square tube across that, and that will be the front axle carrier as well as the wonderful guide carrier. All right, so let's see here. We'll need two of these. One across like that. Try and make it as square as we can. I've already polished up this brass. I know I'm touching it too much with my fingers. Oops. Go. Square that up. Always helps to use tweezers sometimes just to place the brass. Here we go. And the second tube on top, which will actually hold the axle. And make sure that this has a little bit of space between the two. Or between the, I beg your pardon, between the rails and the pan, so that it can rattle a little bit. And let's see if we can do that. That's about right. Now all we have to do is make sure it's square. And pull this out carefully. Let's be very careful now. Straight away. Pull it straight away. It widened a little bit. That's not good. Ah, there we go. That should do the trick. Here we go, a little wider. As long as it's square. There we go. All right, let's take our square and just check it. Well, so far so good. All right. Well, this is out of harm's way. Start up our, and here we go. Okay, so we've let this cool, which is always a good idea. Here's the moment of truth. Let's see if it actually fits. Okay, so here's the pan that we kept out of harm's way. Oh, look at that. Oh! Can you hear that? It's just got the right amount of rattle. I don't know if you can hear that. I'll try it again. I'll try to be quiet. I'll try to be quiet. Listen. What do you know? Even a broken clock is right twice a day, huh? Okay, so now we're going to fabricate some, I don't know what to call them. Connectors? Connections? I'll show you what we'll make them out of though. We're going to use spring steel, or piano wire really, and we're going to cut them into small bits, bend them, and this piano wire actually fits into this square brass tubing quite nicely. And listen, there's a little bit of play, So that should give it enough play in the actual chassis. Okay, let's see what that's going to look like. So there we have it. Those are the bent pieces of piano wire and soldered to the center pan, and they are inserted into the square brass tubing, which is soldered to the outside pan. And while I was doing all that soldering, I also soldered some attachment points to the body on the side pans. So that's what that looks like up front. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to wire the motor, attach a guide blade, put the wheels on and tires, and we should have a chassis. All right, now I have kind of fast forwarded this a little bit, and I hope you don't mind, but here is the chassis for the Lola T-70 by Palmer. And here's the body, using the chassis of the model. We determined the wheelbase, and that's how we soldered the pan floats. I'm going to call them a pan float. I don't know what they're really called, but let's just call it that for now. So as you can see, with wheels and tires, this car is going to look pretty good. Look at that, eh? But the good thing about having a chassis, and one of the reasons I wanted to fast forward it a little bit, was just to see if this thing would actually run. Now, I just finished doing all this work. I haven't run it on the track yet. The gear mesh seems just lovely. I managed to put some fairly wide tires, actually the same width of tire that I put on the Monogram 2000 Lola T-70, which are ones that we've cast ourselves out of 40 shore urethane. But wow, we got the same width and narrower tires up front. So what do you say we try this on the track? Just no timing, but just to see if the actual chassis works. Let's go do that. All right, so here we are. We have our chassis for the Palmer Lola T-70 on track. I actually have not run this yet. I think I got the polarity right, but let's try it. I've got the right controller here on the right lane. Let's see if it goes. Oh, look at that. It seems to be going quite well. Doesn't seem to have a lot of brakes. That's a function of the 030 motor, I'm sure. But it sounds really smooth. Well, I'm very pleased. I hope you're pleased as well. Well, let's just get the body in and see what it looks like with the body on it. Hang on, I've got it right here. There it is. Let's take a look here. Oh, that's gonna look so good. Wow. Wow. Okay, so that's 2 chassis for 2 Lola T-70s. Only 2 more to go. Well, listen, thank you very, very much for being with me on these projects. Sort of a one project, many cars. Thank you so much for commenting, for subscribing. I am absolutely overwhelmed by the number of subscribers I have now. Thank you also very much. Well, we'll continue doing something here in Scale Car Garage. I hope you enjoyed watching. If you did, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe.